workplace. The first is achievements. You've probably seen the phrase achievement unlocked many times on the internet lately. If you've ever played anything on the Xbox, it pops up constantly and says you've unlocked this achievement and that achievement. This is the idea that you've completed something, you've earned something. There's the idea of appointments, that you've got to be in the right place at the right time for something to happen. There's a sense of accomplishment in a game if you've made it there. Well, I feel pretty good every time I make it to a meeting on time at work, because my time management skills are, no, that's not true. But there should be a sense of accomplishment. If somebody tells you, try to get here by this time, and you get there, great, you did it. Next concept is behavioral momentum. In games, we trust the fact that once you get somebody started on a path, that they're going to continue on that path, that they're going to want to keep doing what they're doing because they believe that there's an incentive of some kind at the end. There's blissful productivity. This is a theory that says, you know what? We are made to work. Not all the time, but we are made to have goals. We are made to pursue them, that we were designed to achieve. And I don't know about you, but I wake up in the morning and I want to achieve something. I want to get something done. I want to feel good about myself. So the theory of blissful productivity is that we will enjoy life more with a purpose than without. There's this concept of bonuses, and they can easily be financial, but I like to think back to video games where I was always trying to get that high score, and there was that thing you could do. Like I think about Galaga, and there was that thing where you could get the 2 ships instead of just the 1 ship. Anybody know what I'm talking about? And you could score points twice as fast that way. What a bonus. So once you find out about that, you never want to play it any other way, right? Well, there's cascading information. This is the idea that we don't tell you everything all at the same time. A story is not revealed all at once. You get information piece by piece. Have you ever played a game like that? Have you ever, well, if you've read a book, you've experienced this. The idea that you don't know what's going on until the end. A good author will reveal things slowly and in succession. That motivates you to keep reading, hopefully, to keep playing. Combos are something else. The idea that you can get more points, that you can experience more satisfaction for doing certain things together. Community collaboration is a big one. In games, who's heard of World of Warcraft? Anybody? Games along that line, the massively multiplayer genre. The idea is that you can play with your friends, and that you're not just trying to hack and slash all your friends to death in the virtual space. You're actually trying to achieve something together. Personally, I think that's much more fun. I'd rather get into a room with 3 other guys and go blast my way through a whole bunch of aliens, and then we all feel like we've had a shared experience. And that's the same with the way you want to get people involved together in the workplace if you can. The idea of a countdown implies a timer, that you've got a limited amount of time to get something done. And it feels really good to beat the clock. It feels good to get done ahead of schedule. Discovery is another big one. So if you've ever played a game that involves exploration, the idea that you don't know everything, you can't see everything, all the way back to the first Warcraft and the fog of war, and the idea that you couldn't see the map. You knew where you were, but it was kind of like if somebody literally dropped you off on an island in real life. You didn't have a map. You didn't know where anything was. You had to figure it out for yourself. We can gamify the workplace by giving people a piece of information that's essentially a trailhead and sends them off in a direction and lets them figure out for themselves some key things that they need to know. Now, you might consider that a waste of time, but the sense of achievement and ownership that might come with that could be great. There's epic meaning, that sense that we're part of something much bigger than ourselves and that we're achieving something that's really big. The free lunch concept, which is essentially that you got something and somebody else did the work. Now in games, this is a really good feeling because you're taking advantage of the effort somebody else put in. We have to be really careful how we use something like that in the workplace because, I don't know about you, but I want to be rewarded for the work I do. I like to do nice things for others, but I don't want the credit taken away unnecessarily either. But this is a very common theme in games. There's also infinite gameplay, the idea that maybe there's no end state. Maybe the game doesn't end. You don't win, you don't finish level 8-4 of Mario Brothers and it's over. It's a game world that just keeps going and going. Hopefully our careers are like that. That there's constantly something to look forward to, more story to uncover. Levels are another big thing. Mario Brothers is the example that I kept going back to as I was researching this and coming to understand the parallels between gamification and the games that I used to play. It felt really good to find a way to get to the next level. it felt even better to find that thing that was called a warp zone that would let you jump ahead 3 or 4 levels, because there was a sense that you were getting somewhere, that you were really achieving something. And levels exist so that we can have that feeling as we play. And another thing about levels, gamification in the workplace. If we were to institute, for example, a system of badges and titles that lived outside of our corporate org structure, where you earn a title by achieving a certain number of things, by finding a certain number of pages on your SharePoint site, or by participating in something, or by running enough reports that you've leveled up in a sense. It's kind of a good feeling to have a higher rank than your boss. And in a virtual space, that's entirely possible. Loss aversion is another big thing. None of us wants to lose the things that we have. And in a game world, it's common to give somebody 5 or 6 things and make it possible for them to lose them. And the more things they lose, the harder it is to complete the task that they've set out to complete. This can be used in something like SharePoint, where you can give people access to a certain number of areas, and for the purpose of an exercise, maybe take one of them away and see what the impact is of not having access to something. And that can really help people understand in a training exercise how important those resources are and how quickly they can achieve a task when they've got all the right resources at their fingertips. There's a lottery concept, which is random. In the game world, if you win something and it's completely random, you feel great and you want to keep playing. If somebody else wins it, sometimes people give up and they don't play anymore. This can have the same impact in the workplace. This is another one of the ones that kind of falls into the warning category. We have a lunch lottery at Slalom. We'll basically randomly select people and say, okay, this week you 4 get to go out and eat somewhere. And then a month later, we'll pick another group of people and say, this week you all get to go out and eat somewhere. With that lottery system, eventually everybody wins. We're making sure that everybody gets to win occasionally, and I think that's a safe and fair way of having a lottery. So I guarantee you, if I never won, I'd start to feel a little bit bitter about it. Ownership is a big deal. In the game world, if you feel like you're in charge or you own something, by golly, you're going to see it through. And the same is true in the workplace. If we can use fun, if we can use entertainment and engagement to create a sense of ownership in people, they'll keep doing what they're doing. We will keep doing what we're doing. Points, something else. You play games where you score points. Everybody wants to have the high score. If we attribute points to things like page views in SharePoint, or to the number of times people have run a report or completed a task on time, something else that Slalom does that I appreciate is they track week to week whether or not I've turned in my timesheet on time. And I get an emoticon or an avatar that shows how happy HR is with me. And that's kind of nice, because back in the beginning when I didn't get it in on time, it was actually sobbing, and now it's quite happy. That's a nice thing. Progression, another big one. This is the sense that we are actually getting somewhere. Project milestones are a big piece of this, and finding a way to add some measure of entertainment to the way status meetings take place is a good idea. It increases engagement and lets people feel like they're actually achieving something. Quests are really common in the game world. The idea that we're setting out to do something and we don't know how to do it, or where something is hidden, or who we need to talk to get a job done. There are some parallels between that and what we all experience in the workplace. We're all assigned tasks that are new to us. There are new products that we're introduced to. There are new technologies that we need to learn. And if we're responsible for training, finding ways to take that quest atmosphere and apply it to what we're doing can be much more interesting than just telling somebody, here's a manual, go read this and figure out how to do this new thing that you're responsible for. Reward schedules are a big deal, understanding that there are rewards associated with the different things that you're supposed to achieve, and then here's the key, actually following through on those rewards whenever possible, making sure that people actually receive the incentives that they believe they're supposed to. And status, the idea that we're motivated by trying to reach that higher level. This is related to that concept of leveling. And urgent optimism, the idea that, man, I got to get this done because I know I can do it and I just want it off my plate. That exists in the game world, also exists as close to home as our email inboxes. And I believe this is the last one, virality. You've heard of viral videos, hopefully. The idea that something can be shared with one or two people, and that they can share it with one or two people, and that creates a ripple effect that is so big that before you know it, an unfathomable amount of people have received exposure to whatever something is, whether it's a video, whether it's a piece of information that you're trying to leak or share with the community. Virality is a really useful concept, even in the workplace. So what does any of this have to do with Microsoft BI? Now, all these different things that we walk through, can anybody just quickly remind me one of the things from the list that we walked through?
Virality.
Virality, thank you. That was at least one. Yes, one more. Points. Blissful productivity, okay.
Algorithm of the internet.
Yes, that's not one of the, yeah, you're going back a little too far. I'm never bringing Bob again. The goal here is to take these concepts, because some of them spoke to you, right? Some of them resonated with you, others maybe not. Maybe they didn't fit in the genre of games that you enjoyed playing. Maybe they didn't fit with a style of book that you like to read. But at least one of those hopefully struck you and said, you know what, this is how games, how narratives, how fun gets me. This is how it reaches out, snags me, and says, you're going to enjoy this, do it until it's done. So whether it's a book you're reading, a game you're playing, a task you're completing for work, just trying to clear out your email inbox, trying to get your kids to go to bed at night, there is probably something you do that has a sense of achievement tied to the end of it. So at least one of those mechanisms, as we walk through them, hopefully spoke to you. And I want you to hang on to those, because I want to think now about how we can use those in our efforts with Microsoft BI. So the anatomy of the process, if you will, of implementing gamification in your workplace, whether it's with Microsoft, whether it's with pencil and paper, is going to start with diagnosis. And it's going to require that we ask ourselves, what is it that we need to know? What is it that we don't have metrics on? What is it that we struggle to get people to participate in? And when we figure that out, to try to develop a solution around it. And that solution doesn't have to be technology driven. It can be activity driven. So the pencil and paper idea, it could be as simple as you just get people in a room and you try to change the way people think about something. But even then, you want to have a way to report on it. People don't have to know immediately that every page they click on in SharePoint is being logged. That sounds a little creepy if we're watching you. But people don't need to know everything that's being tracked. Because there's a really interesting moment that occurs when somebody sees a metric that they're a part of. And it says, 80% of the company read this article. Or 30% of people who work here actually turned in this on time. And you can think, hey, I was one of those, that's great. Or you can think, I wasn't one of them. Maybe I need to do that next time. Those little things can be really motivating. So whatever makes sense, whatever solution needs to be developed around that, we actually need to go out and engage people with it. We need to find out if it's working. We need to get people to pay attention to it, and we need to collect information based on it. Anything we do that we can't collect information on from a BI standpoint is not really a valuable effort. And finally, just like any other BI project, we would need to have the opportunity to analyze that data that we've collected and then actually improve our processes, not just for diagnosis and collection, but everything in this circle. We need to take the opportunity to get to know people. We need to figure out what works. The fact that there were 24 things in that list that we flew through, and not every one of them spoke to you, but every one of them, I hope, spoke to somebody and reminded you of something that you had experienced. Those are the types of things that I would want to figure out. If I were going to try to gamify something here, then I would need to ask you questions. I would need to figure out which ones of those things were important to you, and that would give me the opportunity to go back and redevelop, re-engage, recollect information, analyze. Hopefully, I'm seeing an improvement. I'm seeing an improvement of people who are engaged, who are filling out their time cards on time, who are reading the quarterly report, and then I can continuously improve. And it creates a feedback loop. Now, I'm not going to tell you that we get everything right at Slalom, but this is one thing that I've never experienced to the degree that Slalom's doing it. And I'm not saying that to toot Slalom's horn, I'm saying that to encourage all of us to consider that gamification works. It does foster involvement. It does garner improved participation. I've seen it, we're experiencing it. And so let's take a look at the anatomy, the really high-level anatomy of a Microsoft BI solution. This is going to look really familiar. If you've worked with Microsoft BI at all, it's probably going to look like everything else that you've done. On the data side, you need some kind of a relational data store so that you can start to track information. You're welcome to try to do that in Excel. I would much rather do it in SQL Server. Analysis services then to analyze the data. There would be a reporting aspect to it. None of this is new to any of us, hopefully. This is just BI. This is just taking something that we already know and thinking about it in a different way. Microsoft provides analytics tools and delivery mechanisms in SharePoint. Most recently, at least what I've had exposure to with Power View, and some of these things that we just heard about yesterday are all going to be really key in understanding how we can rapidly consume, analyze, and deliver results on data that we collect through gamification. But this is no different than any other BI project. It's really simple. It's really high level. The implementation may not be simple, as you know, but conceptually, we just need a place to store data. We need the opportunity to analyze it. We need a way to report on it. And we need a mechanism through which we can share that back at the people who participate, which is us, the people who develop, which is many of us, and the people who lead. And so I've got a little bit of a demo here just to demonstrate how simple this can be, because this is a whole lot of theory, and frankly, it doesn't even seem that challenging as I think about it. It's just like playing a game. And so I've thrown something together here, and I mean that. I set a threshold for myself that I was not going to start working on this until last night. And that's really not just a way of saying that I put it off. I actually said I want to be able to demonstrate that you can come up with a way to gamify, to track data, and to have a way to report on that data very quickly. And so I threw this together. It's a very simple achievement tracking system. And I've got a reporting services report here. There's a menu with 5 items. I can add people and achievements. I can unlock achievements. So once you're added, if you achieve something, I can give you credit for it. And then I can look at a summary of people and a summary of achievements. So let's start by looking at a summary of achievements and see what achievements I've already put in here. I'm tracking being the presenter. I wonder who won that one. And smelling really good. Let's see who actually won these. Being the presenter, if I click there, it's going to take me to a report that shows that it was me who showed up, and then 408 became the presenter today. And then I can click through on my name and see what else I've won, and you'll see that, yeah, I actually won the Smells Really Good award too. Well, this is where I'd like to make this more interesting. So a little bit earlier, I asked a couple of questions, and I would like to see who would like to unlock these achievements for themselves. I'd like to see the first hand that goes up gets credit for this one. First person to remember what prize I'm giving away. I think I saw your hand first in the hat.
Olive Garden.
Olive Garden what?
Gift card.
Yeah, it's a trick question, but you got it. All right, and what's your name?
Russ.
Excellent. So I'm going to add Russ here. Is this normal reporting services behavior, just out of curiosity?
Depends.
Depends, thank you. That's a good answer. So I'm using a parameter here to pass information to a stored procedure for anybody who's technically interested in what's going on. And it's just making a record that Russ is a person. I can try to do that again, and it's going to know that Russ already exists in the database. So this is live. This is actually happening right now. I can click through here and I can say, you know what, I want to give Russ credit for being the first to remember the prize. And now if I go look at the summary of achievements, we'll see that somebody has actually unlocked the first to remember the prize, and that was Russ. So the fact that I could throw this together last night, it's literally no more than about 70 or 80 lines of code on the SQL side. It took about 15 minutes to build these reports. You can see there are no frills. There's nothing nice about them except that they display a little bit of information. I'm going to ask a couple more questions, but before we do that, before we continue gamifying this session, if you will, I really just wanted to use this as an illustration of the fact that when it comes to gamification, really the challenge is a creative one. It's a challenge of taking those things that engage us and make us enjoy what we're doing, that make us want to get out of bed in the morning and go to work and actually participate in the things that are going on that are a little bit more mundane. It's actually harder to do that and to get that right because it's so people-driven than it is to actually implement the technology piece. I mean, this is a little bit clever, but it didn't even take long, really. And it may not be the way that we normally write reporting services reports using parameters to actually write data to the database and then be able to report back on that in the same application or scenario, but you could easily do this with some custom dev in SharePoint. We all either are or know people in our organizations who can do custom development. That turns out to really be the easy part. So the challenge is for us to know each other, to know our coworkers, and to be willing to invest time in identifying what it is that engages us. So next up, let's take a look at a couple of the other achievements here. One of them is giving a good definition of gamification. First hand I see, when I ask for a definition. Yeah, this is happening. Okay, see it.
Incentive-centered design.
Very good. Incentive-centered design. What's your name?
Shaman.
Excellent. And can you spell that
Give
for me?
yourself an award if you spell it correct.
Excellent. You've gamified the presenter. I'm impressed, sir. Can you spell it for me?
Shaman.
Just like that?
Got 2 O's.
Excellent. Okay, and I'm going to unlock that achievement for you. Oh, I actually added you as an achievement, so I'm going to add another achievement, fail, and unlock it for myself.
You can correct the spelling too. There's no L in there.
Okay, excellent, thank you. So I'll take that and move it over to add person. You've been added, and I'll unlock that achievement for you. The next is giving a good example of gamification. It has to be a new spin on something we've already talked about or something that we haven't talked about. I want to see some creativity here. Gotcha.
Dungeons and Dragons, where you walk through the game, you try to gain power or kill things.
Yes.
Find
Yes.
a way out.
So the second half of the question then is how could we apply that in the workplace?
Maybe put different rewards on goals and have people achieve those goals. They get, to take 2 15-minute breaks instead of.
Excellent. I like that. I'm all for extra 15-minute breaks. Bob will tell you that. So, perfect. And what's your name?
That's Mark. It's kind of
Mark, I know I asked you earlier. My memory works about 1% of the time. I'm going to unlock that achievement for you. And again, it's all reporting services. All right, so the next question is going to be, does anyone here know the presenter's last name? I saw your hand first.
Mintmier.
Yes, close enough too. What's your name?
Guillaume. Would you like spelling?
Yes, please.
Guillaaume.
Excellent. And I'm going to unlock that achievement for you. This next one is a question that we've already asked, but I'm going to ask it again now that we're officially playing the gamified part of this. The first hand I see when I look up, remember a unique game mechanic. Okay, saw your hand again. Bob is disqualified.
Quest.
Perfect. And I've already got your name selected here, that's easy, so you just got credit for that. We're gonna do a few more of those. Can somebody else remember a unique game mechanic? Bob, you're disqualified. Yes,
Appointments.
appointments, very good. All right, one more.
Countdown.
Lottery.
Lottery, very good, and I heard yours.
Countdown.
Yes. Okay, so going to give Russ this one, and then I'm gonna need to ask your name again, even though I asked it earlier, sorry.
Eugene.
Eugene, okay. I'm going to add a person here. Eugene. And unlock this achievement for Eugene. Now, ideally, you don't have to wait for a slow clicking presenter to do all this. This feature, this functionality could be built into our SharePoint site, it could be built into our reporting services portal with a little bit of customization. So this type of thing would happen automatically for the users, and we could have really meaningful achievements. Like, you've run this report every day without a break, every business day, at least for the last 6 months. So you get some kind of a badge or an achievement for that. All right, one more. We'll remember one more unique game mechanic. Bob?
Blissful optimism, come on.
Very good, Bob. Anybody else? One more.
Points.
Who said it? Okay. Now, I think if I remember the way I set this up, it's going to tell me that you've already unlocked this game, this remember a unique game mechanic achievement. So I'm going to need one more person who hasn't answered one. That's good. Somebody who isn't from Slalom.
Combos,
Combos, very good. What's your name?
A-J-Y.
Excellent. Yeah, I need to be sure to add you as a person, not an achievement here. I almost did that again. Unique game mechanic. There we go. All right, and this last one, I'm going to make things awkward, and I need someone to volunteer someone else to get the achievement for smelling really good. I can wait as long as you can.
That
Excellent.
sounds very good.
Excellent. What's your name?
Randall.
Right on.
You should have said you were a she-hat or something.
It's the clever achievement.
Excellent. Now at this point, I'm going to go take a look at the achievement summary. And we do have the most people who have remembered a unique game mechanic. This is the type of statistic that I'd be really interested in if I were looking at a SharePoint site and I could see which pages were visited the most. If I have a knowledge base, it would help me understand which things maybe we're not training well enough on because people are constantly going and having to look something up. Or maybe which pages are the most valuable. It's all a matter of perspective. On the person summary, I can gauge participation. And I can see that besides myself, we've got 3 people here who have gotten 2 achievements and 4 people who have gotten 1. So it's time for a tiebreaker between Russ, Shamoon, and Dion. Hope I'm saying everybody's names right. I apologize if I'm not. And so of the 3 of you, I want to see, firsthand that I see, one more of the unique game mechanics. I saw your hand first.
Badges.
Sorry?
Badge.
Excellent, yeah. Excellent. So a type of reward. So this is now yours. The tiebreaker worked successfully, thankfully. There was no fist fight, no brawl. So you'll be receiving that at the end. And if it doesn't work for some reason, make sure you know how to contact me. Or Bob. You can just contact Bob if it doesn't work. He has nothing to do with it, but it's fine with me. I'm going to switch back to the presentation now. Hope this works. Very good. And that'll let us move on to the takeaway. You've all been really patient. I know it's 5:30, and hopefully eyes aren't glazing over. I've really enjoyed having the opportunity to talk to you. Gamification. We've talked a little bit about what it is, who's doing it, why we should care about it, and two really big points. One's on this slide, one's on the next. The technology piece of it, we know Microsoft BI. If somebody tells you we need to figure out how to track something, we need to figure out how to analyze it, report on it, we need a mechanism for being able to share that information with the organization, we got that, we can figure it out. But gamification is only as effective as our ability to be creative and analytical in our approach, to get to know the people we work with, to figure out what it is that actually incentivizes them and garners their participation. And then second, the fact that it can transform your business. It took this guy who hated submitting his timesheet every Friday, and I was always turning it in Sunday night or barely getting it in Monday morning, hoping nobody would notice. And just that little thing, that there was an avatar that was either sobbing or was really happy if I got it turned in on time 4 weeks in a row. Something as simple as that garnered my participation. It got me to do that. We gave away a prize for whoever could answer the most questions correctly about our quarterly report, as I mentioned earlier. That got a lot more people to read the quarterly report than might have otherwise. Gamification can transform your business. We're seeing it, we're living it, and I encourage you to find ways to champion it inside your organization, and Microsoft BI can help you get the job done. If I could build a mechanism last night, just with a little creativity, a little bit of free time, when I wasn't developing these slides, then you can do it too. Your organization can do it too. And we all have the opportunity to make things better. There's an opportunity for Q&A here. So if there's anything you want to ask, feel free.
How many projects like this have you worked on?
Myself?
Or just with your, really?
Slalom, though, has had the opportunity to work on several, if I'm not mistaken.
And are they typically reporting services, days?
Having not participated in them, I don't want to lie to you, I don't actually know.
So the product that we sell on the gamification side is apps.
This is why Patrick is here.
Yeah, they'll run on your Apple, on your Windows, on your Android phones. And we have quite a number of products out there that we work with all the clients to develop. You know, of course, we have the platform, and then we kind of go in and engage with the client to understand what do they want to gamify within their organization. So recently, for one example, we had internally, we have a career development and planning platform called Slalom Edge, and that we've been rolling out across the offices. But basically, as part of the launch of that, we created a game around all the different features. Right? So you could actually download the app, and it would ask you questions about, can you upload your resume to it? Can you add, skills and so on to it? And you can answer yes, no, whatever. And at the very end, we have a leaderboard in each of the offices and everyone got prizes from it. So it was a way to kind of engage people to see, oh, we have something new that we rolled out across the organization. And a lot of people just ignore it, generally in the past, right? But now, because we've gamified it, they're actually going and taking a second look at it, getting engaged with it, and then playing the game as a result. They don't realize that they're actually learning.
Yeah, at our company, Schmoon reminded me of it, we had a gamification where they were asking for things that might improve the efficiency of the company, all different areas. And not only was the company benefiting, obviously, with, saving money by figuring out stuff, but then they would give points and have leaderboards, have a cutoff date, and people would get gift cards and stuff. So
That's great. Has anybody else experienced this?
But where I work is, kind of a situation where I hear on the other side of the wall, and, I'm a database program person, but I'm hearing the real people working on it. And it's kind of interesting to me how much of the time I hear them talking about essentially the inequities of the point system. They have a point system for these different jobs that they do. And they talk about it. They'll go, well, I thought I'd do those, but you only get 2 points for those. So that's I worked on that all day. That should be, and it's really interesting to me because they're essentially showing that, it's supposed to be a really great idea, but if it's implemented to where people spend all their time talking about how it doesn't make sense,
Sure.
it's I have to give you some disclosure. I spent decades of my life as a professor teaching motivation. And, you know, I understand that a lot of what they're doing here are using tools to motivate.
That's right.
I mean, we call it gamification, but it's those principles. And it's a great thing, but it doesn't always apply to everybody, and your great idea of points may not be what makes this other person tick.
Sure.
So the
Sure.
tough thing is that in some ways it can't be too big, because I mean, if you feel like it's a gross inequity that this guy is getting these points and I worked all day on this and I only got these little bit of points, he's counterproductive. So it's got to be done right, because I hear that all the time.
Agreed.
It's not a bad idea.
Well, it's easy for me to stand up here and respond to that since I don't know all the details of the situation, but it seems like that's an opportunity to put a feedback loop in place where there's a more official way of receiving that feedback than just you hearing it. And it's great that you're hearing it, but if it stops there, then, you know, I think we're all in that boat. We've all heard from our coworkers and we've said ourselves when things don't work. And without that feedback loop, we don't have the opportunity to refine. So I completely agree. Without having the opportunity to refine these processes, once they're in place, they'll stagnate. And they can even create bitterness rather than incentive.
It's a good thing. It's very clear they're paying attention to it.
Yes.
It's got their attention, but it's got to be, you know, you've got to get feedback somehow.
That's right. Very good. Anybody else, positive or negative?
So I just have one plug, actually. So M Level is actually our division of the company that has started, you know, marketing the gamification platform that we've developed. So check it out, just take a look at it. It gives you more of a practical application of what Kevin's been talking about. So it's mlevel.com.
Yes, sir.
Is there some additional adverse effects? For example, will this work maybe better with Gen Y type people? Or also maybe in some people might have the opposite effect, like for example, some people might not play certain games because they're tired of losing, so they just stop playing that completely. You know, so.
And the same goes for organizations. There might be some organizations where people are like, you know, all about cheering and points, and there are some organizations like mine where everybody's, you know, enjoying the thoughts smiling. So.
Yeah, maybe being proud that, you know, you use your example as a smiley face, you know, maybe some employees would be proud to never have a smiley face, you know, where
Sure.
it's really the opposite effect.
Sure.
Which
I
would
think
be a
that's,
problem, of course, so there's another premier with the
entirely true. If I like to see my emoticon on the timesheet bawling its eyes out every week, then I would never turn it in on time. So you've made an excellent point. And that underscores the importance of actually taking the time to get to know our people and making sure that there's an analysis that happens at the beginning before we ever try to collect any data, before we ever try to put the plan in place. So thank you for both for underscoring that, just the criticality of actually understanding our audience and understanding how to communicate and interact well with them.
So have you actually looked at, I mean, you obviously had a number of clients.
Yeah.
So have you kind of, you know, you gauge your clientele and say, what kind of works good for this type of companies or this type of environments or this type of situations, and really, you know, anytime we've done something here, it was a flop?
I think it's less about the type of company, but more about the application within the company. So learning is a big use, a big push for the gamification. So training on, I think one of the first examples of what we did with it internally was to get to know people in your office, right? So we went from 70 people to 150 people within a year. We doubled in size. So there's a lot of new faces, a lot of new people coming in. And one of the games was on the iPhone that we had, or any platform for that matter, could be a Windows phone, was just, you know, face recognition, or what's this person's role, or who is this person, right? And at the quarterly meeting, we had a leaderboard. This person was able to identify on average in less than 1 second on the screen for the 24 screens that they had who the winner was. So it's the application. Applications of gamification and learning is really what the big push is, but it can be applied across the board.
When do you start gamifying a company? is it really hard to stop? Because then they expect that sort of incentive for all other aspects? Like, have you done that where you implemented gamification and then they stopped after maybe a year or two, and then they've just done a lot worse as a result of not having that incentive anymore, or is that not?
We haven't encountered that situation yet,
I guess there was a speaker a while ago talking about creating markets, and when you create a market for, I guess, his kid, where he would give him $5 every time he sent a thank you letter out. And so the worry was, the anticipation would be that they would always expect that $5, and then when they don't send it out, there'd be kind of when they stop getting the $5, it would be sort of a drastic.
it could be an interesting problem to kind of encounter, right? So one thing that we've noticed is the younger generation of people love it. They love getting involved in gamification. So we've worked with one of the large telecommunication providers to help their staff at stores get to understand the new telephone models that are coming out. Because these things are coming out like different types every month, right? Very hard to be reading a spec sheet and trying to remember everything. So we give them an app, and they love it, and they really learn the features. So when a customer comes in, they notice that because they've been playing the game on their phone all the time, like during downtime. And we've been kind of looking at, well, all the staff, who's actually getting more engaged in the games. It's this younger generation. So like me in the 40s and later, not as...
Any Windows Phone included in that?
Yeah.
So I think what's interesting about your question is, if you stop gamification, I think one of our challenges as the professionals implementing these types of processes and technologies is to figure out how to continuously evolve it, right? We build a game, you've learned the platform, you learn the processes and procedures. Now what? Okay, now what's next? Right? We have to continually evolve that process and change it enough so that it is something new, it is something that stays, that keeps people engaged. And that's our challenge. And there's not a good answer for how you do that. It's just understanding your culture, understanding your environment, understanding your processes and procedures, and how those change and what you need to do, what you can do with gamification if it's appropriate.
Would anything be off limits for gamification, you think? Something that you would not suggest going into? I mean, there's probably a lot of things, but in the workplace, I guess.
That's a good question. I don't have a great answer for that.
Yeah,
I don't know if there is
situation.
anything that's off limits. Again, it depends on what your corporate culture is and what's acceptable in some companies are a little bit more liberal than others, and how far you can take that gamification.
I love the idea of gamification, don't
Right.
get me wrong, it just curious.
I think it all goes back to the behaviors you're trying to incent, right? So if you put too much emphasis on one particular thing, that may be, it's great to incent, timesheet entry, for example, from a professional services firm. But, if you start to say, well, okay, we're going to incent blog posts, for example, well, that starts to eat into your client billable work, then now you've shifted, it a little bit too much to where you're incenting maybe perhaps a counterproductive behavior. So you just kind of, you gotta
Well,
make sure that.
that's when you tie it back to the timesheet and make sure that the number doesn't drop.
A good way to put it to the test maybe would be five speakers in a row give out this sort of, $20 gift card, right? And then the last speaker doesn't give one out, and so maybe there's that expectation.
That speaker doesn't get invited back.
Am I playing to make sure that doesn't happen, and so he doesn't know that this isn't activated, it's just a card. But with that, I think with respect to time, I really appreciate all the conversation here at the end. I appreciate you guys filling in some of the blanks and for me, what we've done. And all of you just for being here, for participating. My contact info is here. I'm going to be making sure that this presentation makes its way along with everything else where it's accessible. And thank you.